The South African Van Breda family consisted of 5 characters: Martin, Teresa, Rudy, Henry and Marley. Martin the father was a successful businessman, making himself a millionaire at 54 years old. Martin served as the managing director of a few companies, including a German real estate company called Angel and Volkerus, but at heart he was a family man who would do anything to provide for his wife and children. Teresa Lambretta was the kind of mother who would protect her children against anything and everything. She was kind and compassionate and looked at life in a very optimistic way. Together, Martin and Teresa had 2 sons and 1 daughter, the oldest of the Van Breda children. Rudy was 22 years old and he was very invested into schooling. He already received his bachelor's degree from Melbourne's Trinity College, but wanted to take his education a little further and began pursuing his master's in engineering at the University of Melbourne shortly after obtaining his bachelor's. The middle son Henry was the quiet one of the children. He was also the most well-mannered ever since he was a child. At the age of 20, Henry began to follow his brother's footsteps, and he decided to pursue advanced schooling as well. He studied for a few years at Scotch College in Australia, and went on to study physics at the University of Melbourne, same school as Rudy. I guess you could say Henry was calm, cool and collected. He wasn't the most popular one of the siblings, but he was definitely the most charming, especially with girls. He did have a girlfriend named Danielle, and he was the one that wasn't really afraid to get into trouble every once in a while. The last one of the Van Breda children was the youngest and only daughter Marley. Marley was 16 years old and just a ray of sunshine. She spent her days with her friends and family, being into everything a typical girl would be into, and she also had a boyfriend. And this family had everything: really a tight bond between the parents and children, a cozy home to spend their days in and enough money to use on really whatever they pleased on. At first, the family lived in South Africa for some time, and later, they moved to Australia to be closer to the kids' schools. However, eventually Martin and Teresa felt like they wanted to come back to South Africa. And with Martin's work, it was actually really easy to do. And with all the family members in agreement, the Van Breda family sold their home in Australia for $2.5 million and moved back to South Africa. In 2014, Martin and Teresa found an elegant home in a nice city called Stellenbosch, which is located outside of Cape Town. In fact, the new residence was a luxury home, situated in the middle of the gated community, a golf estate, which was notorious for being one of the safest places to live in all of South Africa. And South Africa currently has terrible crime rates. This past year, they had a murder rate of 58 a day. However, this community had electric wired fences with gates and security guards, as well as CCTV security cameras. Long story short, this community had top-notch security inside these gates. The neighborhood was extremely beautiful and dreamy. It had a golf course, a winery, restaurant, basically anything they needed, and everything in their life appeared to be looking up. Rudy, Henry and Marley were making new friends and reuniting with old ones. The whole family was just coexisting happily under one roof and everything was perfect. That is until one incident changed their lives forever in the January of 2015. Unfortunately, Henry Van Breda was the only person that was able to recall the timeline of events that night. So the summary I'm about to tell you is taken from his statement. The evening of the 27th of January, 2015, was really unlike any other one in the family. Once they finished dinner, the family kind of dispersed into their corners of the home. Marley was in a room reading a book and Rudy had decided to go for a jog around a neighborhood. Henry and Martin were watching a movie and having a few glasses of wine. Overall, the family was having a peaceful Monday evening as the night went on. Martine then went into their bedroom and Marley, whose room was right next to theirs, also turned her lights off kind of early and went to bed. Rudy and Henry shared a bedroom on the second floor as well, the same floor as Teresa, Martin and Marley, so they were all sleeping on the same floor. Rudy was working on his assignment on his laptop and eventually went to sleep. Henry sat on the opposite side of the room watching a show on his laptop, and he was on his laptop for a while. At this point, it was nearly 4 a.m. He started getting kind of tired. He returned his laptop on his desk and plugged it in before leaving the room to use the bathroom. It was then that Henry heard something break the silence like a noise. And at first, he assumed that his brain was just playing tricks on him because he was really tired and exhausted, but then he heard more banging sounds coming from the bedroom. He opened the bathroom door a little bit to peek inside the bedroom. There he could see a silhouette of someone standing between Rudy's and Henry's beds. The person was attacking Rudy with an object that Henry wasn't able to see very well. Henry kind of froze into fear and he was trying to comprehend what was going on. He then screamed for help and the lights in their bedroom suddenly turned on. Henry could finally see the horrific reality of this scene. The man was hacking Rudy with an axe. He was covered in dark clothing and was wearing gloves, an abolic lava-type mask. The bedroom light was turned on by Martin. He was so horrified. He screamed and tried to fight the attacker. He got in between him and Rudy, attempting to save his son. Unfortunately, he was struck with an axe as soon as he got in between them. Henry said he could hear the attacker laughing while he was slashing his father with an axe. Martin's body went limp on the bed, and Henry did not see him move again. And throughout this attack, Henry still completely frozen, unable to do anything from all this shock and fear he was experiencing. Suddenly, Henry heard his mother's voice screaming as she was coming out of the hallway. And the attacker now shifted his attention onto Teresa. Just seconds later, Henry heard his mother being assaulted with the same axe. He could not see this attack from the bathroom he was standing in. All of a sudden the man notices Henry in the bathroom and starts heading his way. He tried to kind of close the door and lock it but he failed. He then screamed in fear and started kind of realizing that he has to do something now. He ran inside his bedroom, followed by the attacker. He actually managed to wrestle the axe from the attacker's hands and even noticed that it was surprisingly easy to do that. While this was happening, Henry recalled hearing his brother making gurgling noises on the bed. After he has pushed the attacker away, he suddenly came back at him with a knife. The large intruder was able to inflict multiple stab wounds on Henry's exposed stomach, chest and forearms. They kind of struggled in the fight trying to finish each other off. And at some point, the knife fell to the ground. Henry said that the attacker fled the house quickly. And at this point, Henry said he heard other voices coming from the outside. He couldn't distinguish what they were saying. He just said it was the local African language. Then Henry threw the axe at the attacker and accidentally hit the wall instead. He then ran after the attacker and ended up falling down the stairs. He said it was pretty severe and the events after this were kind of foggy. He then ran outside and didn't see anyone. He located his phone and wanted to call the emergency number but couldn't remember what it was as this was his first time back in South Africa after nearly 8 years. In the morning, Henry called his girlfriend Danielle in panic. But his girlfriend didn't answer the phone. Henry was unaware of a specific emergency number to use in a situation like this. And as his family members bled out on the floor, Henry had to search the internet for the local emergency phone number to call. The last thing he remembers was seeing Marley laying next to their mother Teresa on the floor. After this, Henry lost consciousness and he was out for hours. When he woke up, he was lying on the bottom of the stairs. He again tried to phone multiple emergency numbers but, for whatever reason, again, he was unsuccessful. He then picked up the landline in the kitchen and started dialing the number. He didn't want to sound panic. So he lit a cigarette while waiting for an answer. When he was finally able to get in contact with the emergency dispatcher, it was an absolute horrible service. The call lasted more than 25 minutes because the dispatcher couldn't find the address for some reason. I'm going to now play a portion of the phone call.
107, what is your emergency?
I need an ambulance. Lots of,
Are there any suspects on scene?
no, they ran away.
With what were they attacked?
An attack. It was. I think I blacked out and I've just woken up.
Are you sure it's 12 Hotchkiss Street?
Yes,
Hotchkiss is in Boortbesig, Milnerton, eh? And you're saying you're out in Stellenbosch?
Yes.
What? Four boxes for that number 12. Listen to me. Are you picking up the address on that number that I'm giving you? What area in Stellenbosch is it? Desalte.
Results the Gulf is
Desaltse. D-E?
Yeah.
Door on the top there connecting our venues. I saw the exactly in the middle there, like since.
It just send it to number 10 Alamon Street. You have to go past my street to get to 10 Alamon Street. I'll be out in the road.
What area?
You might have noticed that Henry sounds extremely calm, like he's ordering takeout. He said it was because when he was a child he had a stutter, and he was guided to talk slowly and calmly. Honestly, in my opinion, he sounds a little too calm. He didn't even try to give his family CPR or help them in any way, even after he noticed that Morley was moving. So since the operator couldn't find the house, Henry gave her an address that was near their home and went outside to kind of flag them down. When the police arrived, they found Henry sitting outside with his head in his hands, and he was covered in blood splatters, wearing only a pair of shorts and white socks. As soon as the police arrived at the Vanbrugh residence, Martin, Teresa and Rudy were pronounced dead as a result of their brutal injuries that they sustained. Marley was actually unconscious when they have arrived. They first thought she was dead because she sustained so many horrible injuries. But they saw her moving and miraculously she survived. She did sustain severe head trauma and needed to be rushed to the hospital. She was found laying face down near Teresa's body. But her trauma was on the front of her face, so police believe that she tried to run after she got attacked or her body was moved later on. The ambulance responders said he has never seen such a gruesome scene in his whole career. When they moved the bodies, literally a waterfall of blood came down the stairs. On February the 5th, a funeral was held for Teresa, Martin and Rudy. Marley couldn't attend because she was still in critical condition at the hospital. Henry, though, was able to attend in the months following the murders of Martin, Teresa and Rudy. Marlene and Henry kept far away from each other because the police were still not sure what happened that night. Marley underwent extensive surgeries and further medical treatment that actually ended up ultimately saving her life, despite the significant head trauma she received. Even though she made full recovery, she was diagnosed with retrograde amnesia and had no recollection of what happened that night. If you don't know what retrograde amnesia is, it's your brain's way of deleting trauma from your memory. So this left Henry as the only person who was able to recall what happened that night. At first, the police speculated that the crime might have been doing of the local gang that was known for burglarizing homes. However, this crime was not typical of them at all. They were famous for robbing homes. And absolutely nothing was taken. There was a purse and a laptop at the ground floor and these were not taken, so their involvement was ruled out, and a robbery was ruled out at all as well. Mr. Cornelius Van Beretta, the brother of Martin, described Vanbrugh family as a close-knit, decent family with no enemies. Henry also testified that the family had no real enemies and he wouldn't know of anyone who had a grudge against them. So puzzled, the police searched the home once again. This time, they noticed that there was no sign at all of forced entry from any windows or doors. In fact, There was only one pair of bloody footsteps found in this home, and that was Henry's. It was also odd that the intruder didn't bring a weapon. The axe and the knife Henry claimed the attacker was using on him actually came from the house. Both those things were located on the first floor, and another suspicious thing was that Henry only received minor and superficial injuries, while his entire family was brutally murdered and harmed. Upon a closer analysis, Henry's socks were not only soaked with his own blood, but also the blood of every one of his family members. Police thought that he could have came up to them to check on them, and that is when his socks got their blood on them, but it's kind of suspicious as well. The police also noted that when they arrived at the house, Martin, Teresa and Rudy had been already dead for nearly 3 hours. Why did Henry take so long to call the police, and the fact that he called his girlfriend initially and spent so much time searching for emergency phone numbers is super suspicious. Another crazy thing is that his family had emergency numbers posted on their fridge. Now when asked about this, Henry said that he looked at those numbers, and he thought that they weren't the right numbers he needed to call for this situation. And when looking at the position of the axe, it looked like the axe wasn't thrown at the wall, but rather hit from a close distance by a controlled hand. They concluded that the axe was not thrown at the wall, but rather just stuck on it while the person was standing right next to it. A blood expert had indicated that Rudy's body had been moved quite a lot based on the blood trail. In the court hearing, the judge noted that Henry changed his details of the story all the time when answering questions. Henry mumbled a lot and didn't like to repeat his answers. At this point, all the evidence was pointing towards Henry. In September 2016, Henry turned himself over to the police but pled innocent when he arrived in court, and the trial went on for 67 days. At the end of his trial, Henry Van Breda was found guilty on 3 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder and 1 count of obstructing justice, and was given 3 life sentences plus an extra 15 years, making his sentence 95 years. Henry never gave a reason as to why he did it. One of the theories is that his allowance from his parents had been recently cut off due to his recent increase in purchasing drugs. But his family denied this theory. It was also said that Henry was always kind of jealous of Rudy, since he always outshone Henry with his academics and achievements. We'll probably never get a real answer why he did it. Henry is currently serving in a prison cell, and meanwhile, his little sister Marley will have to live the rest of her life without a family and a constant reminder that people cannot be trusted, not even your family. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and hit subscribe.